Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Dr. Demographics webinar and podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about a problem that I've heard from several offices that are trying to figure out what the heck is going on with my patients and my staff. Now, I bring that up because there seems to be a lot of people who are saying, what is going on? Why are we not having people show up for work? Or why is it that people are not coming to appointments? Many people are having very good months, and some are just saying, where is everybody? What's going on? And I want to share with you something that I keep hearing on the internet from other demographers and market researchers to talk about the patterns and the things that are happening and what it really means to the doctors with whom we work. Now, just keep in mind, this is Dr. Demographics, and our whole idea is to help make your life easier with figuring out, well, where to put a practice, places and trends that are affecting you. And therefore, our work is a little different than a lot of other people. So I don't know anybody else who does exactly what we do. So I'll just say it's great to be here, and I'm so glad you're with us. Now, I'm going to entitle this today, Playing Hooky, because there's a trend that we're seeing, and I'm seeing in several institutions in which people are not doing what they normally do. And it's confusing to those of us who are a little more, methodical in making appointments and carrying them out and holding to schedules. But patient attitudes about work and life and your practice right now is in a little bit of flux. And it deserves some discussion as to exactly what's going on and why. Now, remember, drdemographics.com is all about knowing where to move, start a business, a practice, or promote your efforts and to get the most out of your location. Now, I'm adding this little line. We're trying to keep ahead of the trends. So what you're going to see is often a little bit in advance of news media discussions about what's happening and why. What the heck is happening to your patients and, by the way, to your staff and maybe even some other people out there? And that's confusing and frustrating to people. Recently, I got a call from a doctor in San Francisco who said, I can't figure out where everybody is because you can take a bowling ball and roll it down Market Street and it won't hit anybody or any cars or anything. And that's odd because it's not like San Francisco is closed. It's not like there aren't people living there. It's just everybody's acting a little oddly. And they were saying, what's going on? So I began to ask other people who are in a particular position to know what's happening in urban areas. And the same things are generally true. So let's see what's happening. Between 15% and 20% of consumers are figuring things out right now. So it might mean that in the middle of the day, people are taking off work. They're not going out to eat. They're not going to work. They're trying to figure out, what do I do? So let's talk about it. I'm referring to this as the Great Malaise. Back in the 1970s, President Jimmy Carter said the United States was in a malaise, which means that everybody was just kind of feeling like their biorhythms were off, if you'll don't mind me borrowing an old term. It means, well, we don't know what's happening. And some offices are saying that's kind of happening with their patients. People are canceling, or people aren't just not coming in, or people aren't appointing. And I'm referring to this as the Great Malaise. Now, I actually talked to my wife about this, and I asked her, are you seeing this? Now, she is a school teacher, teaches at a charter school, has a fairly large class, and she was mentioning the same thing basically among her students. And I also teach college, as you probably know, and I'm seeing it among my students. What's happening? Where is everybody? Students are missing from class all the time. This is what she's telling me. You may say, well, why? Some are sick. There is some flu that is going on, and that is a thing. Some are on vacation, and some have decided to take vacations at particularly odd times. I bring this up because theme parks like Disneyland have decided they're going to offer huge discounts middle of the week, and they've been closed for a while, and everybody's saying, is that going on right now? Well, it turns out that is true not only of Disneyland or Disney World and theme parks, but it's also true of a lot of places of work in which people are saying, don't come in today. I have a son, by the way, whose employer has said, basically, guys, just take Monday and Wednesday and do your work from home. Why? I don't know. It just feels like the right thing to do. All right. Now, some I would put in the category of just playing hooky. There are a lot of people who are getting money still from the federal and state governments not to come into work. And for that reason, they are doing things that are a little off schedule. Regular routines are out the window. Is that going to continue? Well, no, I don't think it is. But it just means that our daily lives are being broken up. And this is a big enough trend that demographers are noting it. Now, some folks can think that it's COVID-19 and that working in an office and going to meetings is not what they want to do. It doesn't count for what is vital. Even staff in your office are seeing everything as a little bit optional. You may have noticed that yourself. And very often, if you have staff people who are married, their spouse may say, today's a day to go play hooky or do something else. Now, by the way, hooky is the old term that was used back in the 19-teens of the 20th century, in which people said, I'm going to play hooky, which meant I'm going to go fishing. Bosses may start, however, to disagree with this attitude, which we're seeing that is common. I also believe that it's going to rather catch up with us. Now, this is a weird topic to go with. I will just tell you what research I've been able to do to quantify it. But the fact is, it's going on, and there's becoming more and more friction between people who are the bosses, people who are generally should be applying for work, and people who are owners of businesses and those who manage them. People don't see working right now as a necessity. That is an attitude I think that's going to change. But at this moment in time, we're at a weird time that way. So the weather's kind of nice outside. It may have snowed, or it may look like a really nice sunny day of the year. I don't know if I want to go in. Money for nothing, and you get your chicks for free is an old song that was on MTV. And everybody kind of assumes that money isn't coming in because of their work and their efforts. There's a disconnect going on in American society. Now, a lot of people have come to the United States, foreigners who are trying to get into the country, and they somehow believe that the rules don't apply anymore and that you can just walk in and that everything is going to be fine. A lot of them are being met with a little bit of a surprise in that, no, the government is not just going to give you money because you're here. Now, my college students seem to agree with this attitude when we talked about it. Many of them are saying, well, no, I want to go to a conference, or I just don't feel like today's the day to come in, like they've got a choice. And yes, I do take attendance. But here's the thing that we're finding. Habits are dead. In short, the habits that have existed for a long period of time have broken down because of COVID-19, and we're now far enough away from the pandemic that people are saying, I want to reestablish my priorities. The commutes are dead. There was a time in which people said, oh, I will happily drive an hour to get to the office. No problem. I'm seeing a lot of doctors are saying, that isn't working for me anymore. So even the distances that people travel to go into your practice, and I'm talking about the doctors and staff, are feeling like that long commute isn't really worth it anymore. Now, how pervasive is this attitude? That's what I want to talk about. There was a document that was released by Facebook that said employees would be expected to come into the office at a minimum 50% of the time. Now, Facebook said that this means that employees will be able to work remotely up to a maximum of 50% of the time, and a practice virtually unheard of among major employers before the pandemic. What we're saying is a lot of major employers are saying to get people to come in at all, for people to apply to the work, they're doing all kinds of things to make it so that they'll come. Now, they'll increase salaries to a degree. Remember the time they were having a $15 an hour demand to work at McDonald's? And many McDonald's are now paying that out. But many McDonald's are also reducing significantly the size of their staffs. Large employers are actually, and this is according to the Wall Street Journal, paring back their full-time employees just to the core. Now, that goes against what everybody has said, oh, we can't get people to apply. But the real problem is people are simply not coming into work. So our article also references a Massachusetts mutual life insurance company survey that found that only 41% of pandemic remote workers look forward to returning to the office. Now, ultimately, we kind of got used to the idea of hanging out in your jammies, or at least not wearing pants while you're on the internet. Well, you can still work, but people are saying getting up and going to work and going through the hassle, I don't want to do that anymore. The hybrid approach, working both in the office and remotely, was favored by 29% of employees in this survey. 10% of workers are not comfortable returning to the office in any capacity. So this idea of malaise is carrying through with a lot of people. And some practices are finding people don't necessarily want to even come in for exams. They would just as soon have you prescribe medicines and diagnose their needs from home. And that is a weird attitude. Now, the question is this going to last? I'm going to tell you, I don't believe it will. And here's why. Benefit payments are not going to last forever. And in fact, the government in several states has begun to say, we're not going to keep paying people not to come to work. It's hurting our state. It's hurting our revenues, our tax revenues. It's hurting fellow people within the state. And so they're saying, no, we're not going to continue with this. That's going to end. But it hasn't been ubiquitous. There are some states that are much earlier in cutting off these benefits and not making them so generous, and others that are saying, no, we'll just keep it going. Inflation is making everything more expensive. And so even if people stay home, they're realizing they can't continue to keep paying an endless increasing amount for their material goods, including groceries. And so they're saying it's probably going to be something that is not going to last. Also, nature abhors a vacuum. So while it was okay for a while to do this, after a while, people just say, I don't want to do nothing. I don't want to be closed in all the time. I don't think that's an attitude that is going to continue. So I think the vacuum is going to have an effect where just people want to get back into old habits. Change, however, is inevitable. I think we're going to see within the next couple of months, people saying, I don't think I want to just hang out at the park. I don't know if I want to just hang out at Zoom. I don't know if I want to be in my bedroom all that much time and just dress in my comfy clothes. I think ultimately that change is inevitable. And wise people count on the fact that these habits that we've kind of gotten into over the last year or two are not going to continue. Now, look, I'm the first to admit I could be wrong, but I am seeing all kinds of industrial studies of behavior that are showing what people are willing to do and not do. So if you were to say, Scott, is this going to last, this malaise? I'd say no, because there are too many market forces that are saying that it's a bad thing. But so many people are planning on changing that haven't told their bosses or their employers. I think there's a lag there, and they're going to find that lag is going to catch up with them in just a couple of months. I always have used this expression when it comes to real living through market trends. Have patience and shuffle the cards. Meaning, in other words, yeah, it is going to change. Now, I also believe that greed, hubris, and time are inevitable. So I'm betting on the more negative side of human nature and the marketplace to kind of bring things back. I think ultimately you're going to see a change in the entertainment industry as they begin to realize that nobody is watching cable news anymore. They've unplugged. A lot of shows that were doing very well are kind of dead. And advertisers are realizing their revenues that they're receiving in as a result of advertising isn't doing very well. So I think there's an implied demand for things to change. And then, of course, we're doomed. Now, I bring this up in this way. I say that we're doomed because there are a lot of people who believe that no matter how you vote, your vote isn't going to count. No matter what you purchase, there is no answer. No matter what pills you take or activities you take, you're still going to gain weight and you're still going to have bad blood pressure and your health isn't going to get any better. We're doomed. Some people are actually seeing that there is one political party that has the desire to give away money to everybody. Another political party is saying we can't keep doing that. And the message is coming across to voters and consumers, we're doomed. We're screwed. nothing is going to change. And I don't think that is going to be true. I actually believe that next year, big changes are going to occur, and not everybody's going to be really happy with them. Now, part of that is going to be domestic, if my market research is correct, and part of it is international. Now, where international and consumer trends come together is in retail. You already know that there are dozens of container ships floating at their anchors just outside of ports, and they can't get into port to unload all their stuff. Then the other thing is they're going back to Asia or South America or wherever their supplies come from, and they're realizing they can't get materials. Things aren't working. And this has been perhaps the biggest physical thing about hubris and malaise. Now, many of you are doctors, realize you cannot get simple pharmaceuticals. It's becoming a problem. Oh, no, it's not huge at this moment, but it's becoming a bigger and bigger issue. Some people are going to start noticing things at the grocery store that they can't quite get. And the worst of all is they're going to go to buy Christmas gifts and they can't get them. Oh, yeah, but what about Amazon? What about all doing things by mail order? You probably will notice that mail order, when you go to Amazon, they're saying, oh, it's going to be a 6-week delay or an 8-week or a 6-month delay before they can get the materials that you had requested. Do you remember it was a very short period of time ago in which things would come almost overnight? Well, that is kind of ending. Shipping is becoming a serious problem. There aren't drivers to take things to and from the shipping ports, and therefore we're doomed. Now, the last part of that doomed thing has to do with energy prices. We can't afford to drive. We can't even afford to go to the grocery stores or to retail centers that we used to pick things up that we want to buy. So it's possible that Christmas will be a little thin this year. And for that reason, I think that feeling of being doomed and the feeling of malaise is going to get worse. A wise person told me recently, he was a market researcher, hey, we're screwed no matter what we do. There's nothing we who are market observers can do to make things any better. Oh, we can lie to people, but that doesn't really help our industry. So as I'm hearing from my colleagues in market research and looking at market trends, they're saying, guys, there's nothing really much we can do. We're going to have to hunker down, and that's a recipe for malaise. Let's go, Brandon. Now, I don't know if you know what that means, but I'm hearing it more and more and more, and not just among Republican firebrands. I'm hearing it more and more. People are saying we're very dissatisfied with what we're seeing in the federal government, and that is wrapped up in that term, let's go, Brandon. If you want to know what it means, Google it. This is Scott McDonald at Dr. Demographics. I want you to know we're going to keep tracking the trends of where things are happening. As you know from our last week's discussion, we see that there is significant growth in a pocket, a very big pocket of the United States. And there are things that are not so bad in other places, but there are places things are looking pretty tough. If you want to know more about it and you want to know about how we can help you, order a telephone consultation and we can prioritize our materials to help you figure out where to go to find the perfect place to put a practice. And thanks so much for watching.